All right, everybody, I want to welcome you to today's webinar. This is part of the Velocity webinar series. Today we're talking with Laura Bessinger-Morse and Cheryl Baldwin about successful messaging and design for fundraising. So this event series is really around pivoting to virtual events and online fundraising. This is the second webinar. We're really happy to be sponsored by Extraordinary Charities and the Great Charity Challenge. And then you'll see Achieve presenting. We have Cheryl and Laura from the Dream Team. Lemon Light and QGive will also be presenting later in the series. To find out about other webinars in the series, you can visit the URL there, achievecauses.com/velocity-webinar-series. Whoop. So a couple of housekeeping items. We'll be recording today's session and we'll send out slides right after the webinar is concluded. So you'll see those this evening or tomorrow morning. You can ask your questions as we go. Just use the chat box to ask any questions throughout the session. And then we'll have quite a bit of time at the end for Q&A. You can also find more free resources on our website at achievecauses.com/resources. The webinar will be available a little bit later in the week. You'll get an email from us when it's ready, the recording that is. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Laura and Cheryl. Go ahead, ladies.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. We're just going to take over the screen with our presentation and we're going to get started.
How's that, Cheryl? Good?
Yes.
Perfect.
Play looks good on your end?
Looks great, yep.
All right, terrific. Well, good morning, everybody. I'm Cheryl Baldwin, and together with Laura Bessinger-Morse, we're going to be presenting successful messaging and design for fundraising. And we're really excited to be here today. Cheryl Phillips, our other partner, presented a webinar on research on Monday. Hopefully some of you are on that, and we're going to sort of build on that and continue with the thoughts for creating an entire brand to be presented for fundraising. So today we're going to be talking about things like, does your message stand out in the crowd? Do your donors really know who you are and care about you? Is your fundraising campaign eye-catching enough to stop and read? You want to make sure it's going to be noticed. A powerful message and design is going to answer yes to these questions and then hopefully compel your donors to give. And so today we're going to be talking about how to build your strongest message and design through your brand and how to compel those donors to contribute to your causes. And today we're going to talk about that, the art of storytelling. We're going to give you some tips for how you can automatically just improve what you're sending out, because we really would like to see you all, especially in these crazy times, have a really successful end of year fundraising campaign. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Laura.
Good morning, everyone. We are so excited to be with you. We definitely want to thank again Achieve for having us here today and all of our sponsors. We wanted to take just a moment to tell you a little bit about ourselves. We are a threesome of professionals who've been out for over 20 years in our fields, honing our expertise and bringing our best to you. I'm really excited today because I am also a former fundraiser. I have worked both in the arts and culture field and outside of that for nonprofits responsible for raising dollars just like you. So we are very in tune with what's on your mind, particularly related to the current climate. This collaboration dream team, though, was formed to provide the arts and culture community a brand and fundraising process that began with research, then moved through messaging and design, informed by that research. And what we discovered is this very powerful process that should be the basis of any nonprofit's decisions related to branding, marketing, fundraising, strategy, and planning. This process has become even more relevant and helpful to organizations striving to move forward in the wake of the pandemic. Our research partner, as Cheryl mentioned, presented just a few days ago. We hope you had the opportunity to see that. If not, you will find that information on the Achieve website for the webinars. So in order to look at my notes and avoid video distraction, right now I'm going to take myself off video after we've said hello so that I'm just looking at the same screen that you are, but I'm going to pop back in at the end for question and answer so we can be a little more personable again. All right.
Okay.
So forward.
So how is this going to go today? This is not going to be a tutorial about what a brand is. We're going to assume that you sort of have some basics about what the brand is. We actually do a workshop on brand that's very specific, and we will mention it today, but this is just more about how to implement your brand in fundraising. We are here to help you understand how the brand should work for you for fundraising, make sure it's loud and clear, and gives you ways to make it more relevant to the people that matter to you so you can raise more money in your traditional campaigns or online, however you're doing it. We're not having slides that we're going to read to you. It's going to be a lot more conceptual with Laura and I basically having a conversation with you about this. So we do encourage you to take notes. There's going to be a lot of good information in here. And really important, just please remember that branding is fun. This is not a root canal. This should be enjoyable. We get it. This is a very stressful year. It's very stressful with thinking about fundraising in this year. We understand that, but this is meant to be enjoyable. So just have fun with us today.
Now, one of the reasons we put this workshop together is even before this time, it's heightened now for sure, but 99.9% of the clients who come to us are struggling with the same problems. We usually hear about a disconnection from their mission or their audiences or both. And you can hear that kind of in that question of, do people know who we are? And do they care about us? Do they care about what we're doing? Another issue is audience assumption. And that is that they've realized that they're building bad branding based on what an organization actually thinks about their audience, not what they've really found out that the audience is truly thinking about them. So always thinking about ourselves and, oh, sure, they see us this way, and we're gonna build our brand and our communications and our fundraising based on that. That's the wrong direction. Another issue is certainly feeling pulled between your funders and the people you serve, your clients. There's so much pressure to please both, but how are you going to do that? There's also disconnection on the inside very often within our organizations. We get to a point where we ask ourselves, are we even on the same page anymore about who we are? And they need a discovery process again. You know, who are we really at this point in time? Where are we going? And do we all feel the same about it? Are we all on the same page moving forward? Certainly everybody at some point hits an identity crisis. Again, not just who are we, but how are we going to stand out in the crowd? You know, you may have other organizations with similar missions, doing similar things. It's all very much needed. But how is your unique voice going to reach the people that you are asking to support you? And then the thing we're always talking about related to money desperation is certainly more heightened right now. It's that never-ending quest for cash that just wears us all down continuously. So how do we lift ourselves out of that, start focusing in the right areas, and let our message also focus in that direction? So before we just dive into this great design and messaging and how to improve it related to your fundraising, we do want to back up just a moment and give you a quick recap of the highlights of brand research that Cheryl presented earlier this week. Cheryl?
So why does research matter? Why is this important? When you can reach out to people and ask them what they think, then they feel really engaged, and it's showing that you're dedicated to what they think, what they want, and it just includes them so much more. It is also another opportunity for you to get in front of these groups, your audiences, your clients, your donors, and communicate your cause and your impact and get your mission across. But it's super important. Cheryl really stresses this all the time. You need to begin with the end in mind. So think about what your intention is before you're doing research. Don't do it just because Cheryl teaches us that we need to do it. Use it to your advantage and have a goal. Do you want to find out about people's giving, reasons for giving, and what's going to motivate them? That might help you steer your fundraising campaign a little bit. Are you trying to reach out and test donor satisfaction? Are you trying to find out, assessing your stewardship? Do people feel like you're doing a good job? Are you guiding this mission well? Are they pleased with it? Do they want to be a part of this? When you can ask these questions and you start with the end in mind, you're going to have a better chance of coming up with a theme and an idea for your fundraising campaign to really connect with your donors in the best possible way.
So I'm going to tell you Cheryl's #1 research tip, and that is don't assume you know who your audience is and what they're about. You have to find out. We simply can't afford the guesswork. So for every question you're going to ask your audience, though, you need to ask yourself, why do we need to know this? And what can we do specifically with the answer? So the point here is just, it's much more about polling folks. It's really doing it with intention, and that's going to give you your best guidance. So again, be sure to contact Cheryl if you missed that presentation, or you can access it, the recording on the Achieve website. Of course, we highly recommend it. Now, I want to start shifting our presentation here, and it needs to begin with a little bit of philosophy. Remember I told you that process that dream team so strongly believes in. There are reasons why we teach what we do, and it's based certainly on the discovery of all of our years of work, but it's also based in the philosophy of how people respond to certain causes, and for organizations to understand what is in a potential donor or supporter's mind. So when we talk about positioning, it really sums up with the statement you see on your screen. You are what they think you are. So when it comes to your brand and message, it's not about you, it's about them. Now, this isn't a new concept. Nonprofits everywhere have really been learning how to rephrase how they talk about themselves with the donor in mind. We all know this term donor-centric, but we really want to concentrate on this and help you really make this entire shift throughout your communications, because you are only what they think you are. Whatever their perception of your organization is, if there is one or not, they might not even know who you are, or they might have the tiniest impression of you. To them, that's who you are. So that's why it's so important that we craft an incredibly intentional message based on research and carried through in the design of not just our fundraising collaterals, but also everything we do related to communications. And it's only that research and stewardship piece that can show us what is in the minds and hearts of our audiences and what our relevance is with them. So I want to tell you about a great book that is a guiding light for our team. It's called Raise Your Voice, A Cause Manifesto by Brian Soy. When we discovered this book, it was almost as if everything that it took all of our hard work, all these decades to learn what we knew to be true and what we really believed in, it's like he wrote it down all in this great document for us. So please check out that book. You can engage with him on social media as well. And, you know, if you decide to message him, let him know you met him through Dream Team. But he has an important saying: your cause truly becomes meaningful when your audience says it does, and not a moment earlier. That's what we are all striving for. So what our biggest message related to a huge shift that we help coach our clients on is, when you put this into practice, we're asking you to learn to talk about your work not as the programs you provide, but the cause you represent, because that's what will connect you to donors. And it's hard to think about that because our information is all about getting programs out there, right? Getting people to connect to programs. But when you are working with donors, you've got to come out strong on your cause. What is your highest purpose? What do you represent? Because that's what's going to attract them to you. So I am going to spend the next few slides carrying you through the emphasis that we place on brand messaging. And I'm in charge of the written brand here with Dream Team, but we have developed a gospel on messaging. So let me run through some of these points and elaborate a little bit on just a few of them. So here's what we believe to be very true, and we've tried it, it's tested and true. What makes you different makes you desirable. That's the uniqueness that we want to bring out in your messaging. Appeal to the one donor, not the 100. Speak as if you are directly speaking to that one important donor. And when you do, talk like a real person. No jargon, no acronyms, none of the insider language that we all fall into and maybe use because we think it sounds impressive or that we're on top of our game or that we've done our science behind what we're doing. So you want that message and that voice to be human. Are you being vulnerable, relatable, and likable with your donor audience? You need to tell a great story. We're going to show you a little bit how to do this in a particular example later on. But we want you to know that, and it's based in some science, when people were studying and interacting with stories, that we are all naturally wired to relax and listen when you just begin to say, let me tell you a story. That's why it's so successful as a way to message. Successful brands also connect the community to your cause, not just your organization. It's what you stand for, right? Donors want to support and engage with people first and learn about your programs later. What are your programs doing for people? That's your emphasis. And people respond to the plight of one, not many. You know, when you look at statistics and you are actually, take the pandemic as a really great example. As those numbers are increasing, we can tend to be more and more overwhelmed by what is happening across the world and in our nation, in our state, and in our own hotspots. But when you have that story of one person and their loss and how it totally changed their world, then you understand why we feel able to help one person and that our giving makes a difference there. Successful brands make emotional connections because individuals make emotional decisions. This is also science. And people join causes that reflect on who they are, who they want to be, or how they want to be perceived by others. Or simply put, messaging is not all about you. It really is about them. It's not about your institution or your staff. It's about the work you're doing that moves people, and if you represent something they want to see in themselves. And never discount self-interest as a major attraction to your brand and mission. You will understand that when you think about the way you align yourself with your own favorite brands and the purchases you make and the places you shop and the car that you drive. It says something about your own personality and how you want to reflect that to the larger world. So my number one advice tip and mic dropping moment is to stop talking about yourself as a program and come out strong on that cause. Your mission is a cause, and causes are powerful. So make people feel something about you. Make them want to be a part of you. So we're going to start with a couple of tips here that you can do right away for better donor messaging, but I'm telling you now, hang on tight to your seat because some of this might upset you. So these examples turn donors off. So if you have any of these words, terms, or tools in your primary messaging, we ask that you stop, throw them down, and just back away. Now this first one is a doozy, and that is the word impact. Okay, we're not saying get rid of it entirely, but don't overuse it. This word, unfortunately, is starting to really lose its own impact because it's overused. So please use that sparingly. Also, terms like best practices, evidence-based, research-based, all these things, they're going to have a place that they're needed, most likely in your grant proposals and your more technical work. Let's pull those out of the way we're talking to our donors. Same with innovative. Everything can't be innovative or it starts to lose its power. Use it sparingly. Charts and graphs, technical data, again, these are things that have a place. They are beautiful in your annual report when they are used the right way, but that is not the first thing we want a donor to encounter. It's not human, it's not warm, and most often isn't telling the right story until it's put in its proper context. And again, industry jargon has no place when we are speaking to our donors. Now we're going to have some real fun here. We want to take you into a beautiful example. Here's a story of an organization that we work with that really wanted to take to heart so much of what we know works with donors, and they wanted to reinvent their message. In a moment, Cheryl is actually going to talk you through what you're seeing on this screen from the creative sense, but I want to give you the origin of how their incredible campaigns and new messaging came across. So this organization is here in Palm Beach County. They serve to provide the community with a place of upused, recyclable goods that are put into artistic creations. Either, these can go back into classrooms for teachers. They have incredible camps teaching environmentalism and art with children. So they have a very unique and wonderful place that is very well placed in our community. People love them. But at a 20-year juncture, their executive director really had a vision to take their entire presence into a new realm. And that wasn't just as the center that people know to come in and fill up their bin with these great goods. They wanted to be known for being out front on environmentalism and just smart consumerism. How is it that we as a community can really take a look at how we're living and make a conscious decision to be more environmentally in tune? So I'll never forget when we were at a meeting with Jennifer and she turned to all of us and said, I just want a manifesto. I want to put something out there. So we're like, great, let's take a crack at it. So if you will look on the left hand of your screen, you see those bold blue letters, ENF. The Enough campaign is this manifesto, and we are putting this campaign into action in a lot of different ways. But I want to read some of this great wording, messaging that came out of the Enough campaign. It begins with, this is our manifesto. Enough is enough. Enough is enough already. We've had it with wastefulness, excess, throwaway thinking, and consumer convenience at a catastrophic cost to people and the earth. Enough as in plenty. There's enough stuff to last forever. There's plenty for everyone. We believe real things last and cherish objects that tell a story. Enough as in what sustains us. Life gives us enough. We can each obtain what we really need, what truly matters. Time, thoughts, and relationships are our greatest possessions. Living simply shapes a more fair society. Then it's followed up with this great segment that says, I take my stand. It's a list of things that people can ascribe to in their own lives and easy ways that they can become part of this movement. It'll be on the notes you receive, but we really say check out their site, get to know them and the way they've embraced this message. But I'm going to ask Cheryl, please, to tell the story then of how we took this message into a design effort. And what you're actually looking at is the resulting case for support. This is a fundraising piece that they're using. Cheryl?
Thanks, Laura. So I do want to echo Laura. And by the way, just Laura, I don't know if you see the chat, but Jennifer O'Brien, who we worked with at Resource Depot on all of these, is actually on our webinar right now. So
oh, awesome. I can't see the chat because my whole screen is full since I'm sharing. Thank you. Hi, Jennifer.
So what we decided to do when we were talking about what concepts for this case for support was we need to come up with something really bold. And working with Resource Depot, you know, Jennifer really embraced the idea of going big or going home and being very bold about this. So one of the things that we talked about is a lot of times when we develop collateral pieces, people are afraid that it's going to look too nice and shiny and expensive. What are you doing with the money that we're giving to you? Why are you spending money on an expensive print job or a big, collateral piece? Isn't the money better well spent? And so we decided that we were going to go big and bold and just address this head on, and came up with, on the very front of this cover, this was a 12-page, 8.5 by 11 booklet that we designed. And we just decided to go big. This is not a waste of money and paper. So we're going to take that off the table right now. And the whole campaign is focused on all of the things that Resource Depot is doing, the concept of enough, the concept of why we're reusing, and it's an appeal. And so the graphics are addressing it head on, and the messaging is addressing it head on. And we're really excited to get this campaign, out in the public, and just decided to be really daring and just address it head on and get rid of those questions. It did not cost that much. It is printed on recycled paper. In the grand scheme of things, it was not an expensive venture to get out there, but it is a great way of getting the message across and carrying through the Enough brand. So I'm going to roll into my portion right now about talking about brand design and how we suggest that you guys are doing this. So your brand. What is your brand? Your brand is the perceived emotional experience of your mission and your organization as a whole. And it represents the connection and the trust that your audiences are having with you. We like to say that your brand is your name tag to the world. It's the way you distinguish yourself from others and the impression formed from people interacting with you. Some people think, well, my logo is my brand. Your logo is a part of your brand. The rest of your brand is made up of all the materials that you put out, what it's like going to your website, what it's like interacting with your employees and your ambassadors and your board members and all those other people. It is the experience of interacting with your organization as a whole, visually, message, what your research tells you, how your people are interacting. And, you know, a lot of times we hear, well, we don't have big budgets to do a brand. So large companies such as Apple and Nike and McDonald's, yes, they have incredibly big budgets. They can do a lot with their brands, but that is not necessary. We work as Dream Team with lots of small businesses and nonprofits. It's all about being consistent, making sure that visually all of your things look the same, making sure that your message is all the things that we've just talked about, appealing to the one, being humanistic, being authentic. You don't need a lot of money to do that. You just need to be smart about it. And my number one advice tip for the design portion of your brand is to recognize that less is more. And this is really, really true. You don't have to put everything that you do or everything that you want on every single piece that people see. We want you to think about your brand again as a mixture of many, many things. You're going to have distinct pieces that are each going to support each other so that when they receive your fundraising package, they've hopefully already had a taste of your brand. And this is just furthering that brand and it's just becoming recognizable. You don't need the budget of Nike to be able to do that. So the next few slides, we're going to be talking about three different strategies that we use with our clients. And these are be bold, be captivating, and be human. And we're going to show you examples of all three of these in different fundraising campaigns that we've done recently. So our first one is for Healthy Mothers, Healthy Babies, who we've worked with. They are a national organization, but we work with the Palm Beach County chapter here. And this is their fundraising campaign that we did at the end of last year for them. And we decided, okay, what can we do that's going to be really bold, really eye-catching? And we came up with this idea of We Heart Dirty Diapers. And we thought, well, that's really fun. And that would certainly get, you know, somebody's attention. And on the slide on the top right, you can see the outside mailing envelope that has the We Heart Dirty Diapers right there. And I don't know about you, I love to throw away my mail. I don't want to have to deal with it. But if I'm getting an envelope that says We Heart Dirty Diapers colorfully and it looks fun, I'm definitely going to open it up. So that was the campaign that we went with, this bold campaign. And when you open up the envelope, there was this great letter from Michelle Gonzalez, the executive director, showing cute babies, showing our fun We Heart Dirty Diapers graphic. The messaging in the letter is just spectacular. It's eye-catching. It's following the Healthy Mothers, Healthy Babies brand. There's a very clear call to action. And inside also, we had these little cards. You can see the front and back here. On the front, it's a little card that says, Here I Grow. And then on the back, donors can write a little message to the moms working with Healthy Mothers, Healthy Babies, and that gets mailed back with their donations. And Laura, how did they do last year with this campaign?
Well, we were really excited to find out that this bold move for them quadrupled their end of year fundraising response. I think that there were two things that really worked well here above what they might have been doing in the past. One is that this was a very specific need that they had to focus on. So it wasn't so generalized. They have many, many incredible things to give to, but this was a very particular need that they were able to highlight, and everybody felt like their contribution was going to something very important for the growth of this organization that they loved. The other one is that it also was very human, again, very relevant to families, to everybody who wants to see babies do well. The whole thing about dirty diapers, you can see, is just that it means that struggling families will have enough diapers to keep their babies doing what they're meant to do, which is grow stronger, healthier, and happier every day. So there was a lot of joy in this campaign, and everyone who contributed felt like they really were able to give and do something important. So we were just so excited all the way around in this presentation, but specifically for the great money this one raised.
Yeah, that was really exciting. We were so happy to hear that. So our next big strategy is to be captivating. You know, we want to make people ooh and ah, both from a messaging standpoint and from a visual standpoint. And last year we've been working with Bush Wildlife Sanctuary, and we did a brand refresh for them. And during this brand refresh, we were really focusing on, obviously, the animals, because that's the best part of Bush Wildlife Sanctuary. And we wanted to get them a fresh color palette and have them be really warm and fuzzy. And the messaging is focused on the animals, how you can help with them, and give them some great visuals. So when it came time to do their fundraising campaign, we wanted to really make all those captivating elements come out. So what we did is we had a large oversized 9x12 envelope. You can see that on the left-hand side, and the graphic, Take a Walk on the Wild Side. So again, this is coming to you in the mail. It's the end of the year. You're getting lots of campaigns. So you really want to start out with your the first touch that you have with them, that outside envelope, make them want to open it. And when they opened it, it was a letter from the executive director. Again, the branding is shining through. The messaging is very human and appealing. The animals are on there. And the appeal, they're asking for what they want in that letter. And then there was an 8-page newsletter that, again, carried the branding through, carried the feel through. On the Wild Side was the name of the newsletter, which is why we did Take a Walk on the Wild Side on the, on the envelope. And we just took them from having not a look, not anything sort of compelling and captivating, and taking everything from being crowded and confusing and no distinguishing voice to this really superhuman. It had started earlier in the year with the branding and the messaging and the materials. We had developed a series of rack cards for them, but then when it came to the fundraising, people had already been used to that human voice and that look and that feel, and it just continued. And that was also very, very successful for them. And then the third strategy, which is so important that we really touched on quite a bit in messaging, is to be human. It's just so important to connect with people, to be authentic, to be real. We all know how it feels when you have a conversation with someone when they're superhuman, and not superhuman like superhuman, but when they're being superhuman, they're being authentic, they're being vulnerable, they're showing their true self. That is what really connects and tells an amazing story. So our example of being human in fundraising has to do with Dress for Success. And Laura, tell us a little bit about what our thinking was for this, and then I'll get into the visuals.
Thank you, Cheryl. Yeah, this was a beautiful story. Again, another example of how a well-known, wonderful organization, it's a national organization, Dress for Success, of course, but our Palm Beach community organization is well loved. But of course, their director said, you know, we do so much more than just clothing women who come in and getting them ready for a job interview. Folks know us for the suits, but they don't really know everything that goes on here to truly change the lives of women and bring them into a place of success and stability. So they wanted to be known for much more. So we took this opportunity to do a couple of things with them. One of them was to elevate that message so that the donors this year would really understand the full impact of how they were helping clients. But we wanted to do it in a way that was story driven. So just in this one piece, we were able to help this organization move away from, here's a list of our programs that we hope you'll fund, to bringing in a new strategy. And that was to give a face to this campaign, to find an ambassador, let their voice tell the story of how they were transformed, and let that same voice do the asking and promote the programs for the organization. So it took them from being information driven and program driven to story driven just in one campaign. And the storytelling here provides context for donors and people to envision and understand the circumstances of this client, Ravinia. Her story here humanized the issues and situations that Dress for Success exists to solve problems for, but it made them so relevant and compelling to the reader. If you were able to read what Ravinia had been through and the success she found just by interacting with this organization, it was truly touching and memorable and compelling. And highlighting that type of success is appealing to donors because then they can see their direct influence and what their giving is doing in the life of a real person. So this is an incredible way to show a great example of how you're helping a person, not a program. And what we did also, Cheryl will take you through all the work she did visually here, because this was a particularly interesting challenge. But you'll see right outside how we carried through this message on the envelope again. We let donors know that right inside they were going to have an opportunity to send a message of empowerment to a client this season. So as they were filling out their donation, whether they did it online or whether they were going to mail something back in, they could include this note to a woman who needs to feel that she's supported. We also put a new phrase right on there on the envelope that tells people what Dress for Success is doing. It's not just about the suit. It is about lifting local women out of poverty and into successful employment. So again, we want everybody to be opening these envelopes, but even if somebody happened not to, They might glance on the outside, and this was an awareness opportunity for this organization. So this one is action-packed. So Cheryl, tell us what you did with this great design.
So Dress for Success is a national organization, and we work with the Palm Beach County chapter. And they have brand guidelines. You should all have brand guidelines, whether it's just you in your office or a national organization. Please make sure you have brand guidelines. And if you don't and need help, we can have a side conversation about that. But they had very strict, brand guidelines. And most of the time, Dress for Success, you will see the burgundy and the black. In digging into the guidelines, they had a whole secondary palette. And so we decided we wanted it to look a little bit different. And so we brought in the grayish green, the grayish blue, the tan, and just really worked with that as sort of like the focus of it. It's still branded Dress for Success. It's still got the look, but just really wanted to show you that just use it and think about it and be creative with it. There's lots of options out there. You can play with it and still stay within your brand guidelines and still have this be recognized as Dress for Success. All right, so we've been throwing a lot of information at you, and we're going to start wrapping it up with some real actionable things you can do. So we would like you to see how you can reimagine your brand as it applies to fundraising from all of this information that we've given you today. So we want to just go over 5 things that you can quickly do to instantly improve your fundraising design and messaging. Number 1 is literally go back through what we just talked about. Be bold, be captivating, and be human. You all can do this with whatever your organization is, your business is, your message is, your mission is. You can find ways to be bold, be captivating, and human. The answers are in there, but you just need to be thinking about them in those terms. The second thing is to make it about your donors and what they can accomplish with you. How can they be a part of your success? How can they feel really tuned into how their contributions are going to affect the bottom line, how the contributions will affect that one person like Ravinia? Really enroll them in your cause and your mission. The third thing that Laura has really touched on quite a bit is to make sure that you are talking about yourselves as a cause and not your programs. There's lots of opportunities and collateral materials where listing and talking about your programs is completely applicable, not so much in fundraising. You need to get more mission-based than that. The fourth thing is to define what differentiates you and solves the problems that the donors are caring about. Figure out what that message is going to be. Figure out what the theme of your campaign is going to be, such as we did with the Healthy Mothers, Healthy Babies, and We Love Dirty Diapers. That was very specific, and it was differentiating. It wasn't too broad. People could really feel like this is something I can get behind. Number 5, if you remember the slide with all of the words and the tactics that were crossed out, please eliminate meaningless language that doesn't support the donor connection. Talk to your people like real people. Be authentic. Just be human. It doesn't need to be flowery and overblown and confusing. Just ask for what you want and be really human about it.
Thank you, Cheryl. Based on that, our team has been really looking, studying, getting out front of what is happening with everybody's fundraising this year due to the pandemic, due to canceled events. How do we fundraise? Can we fundraise? Do we ask people for money right now? We have looked at all of these questions and have been teaching more specific workshops about the opportunities that really exist out there right now. So this strategy that I'm about to run through quickly comes from all of that and is informed by what we're seeing across the nation right now related to our fundraising responses. But there are a couple of things that we're really going to stress here and say that nothing should happen related to your fundraising the remainder of the year until you do these following things. And if you follow these steps, you will be ensured that you're informed about your donors before you involve them in your campaign or virtual events. So again, we're taking this back to, do we understand what is going on right now in the minds and hearts of our donors out there, particularly at this time of crisis? Now, depending on how large or small your organization is, your stewardship will vary on how often you're allowed to contact and connect, depending on your time with your donors. But right now, everything should get a reset related to your fundraising. There's nothing like this health crisis to give us a reason to call and connect with our most important donors on a very, very personal way and check on that relationship. So we're asking you to pick up the phone and just find out how they're doing. Tell them they matter. Thank them for their support. You're not going to ask them for a thing on this call. One caveat to that is perhaps ask them if they'd be willing to help you on a survey. That's the only thing we want to ask of them right now. But pick up the phone and call your donors. And likewise, do the same thing with your larger funders, your foundations and your corporations who support you. Have a real caring and human conversation with them and ask what is shifting for them. Where is their focus now? What are their pressures and worries? What are they hoping that the work that you've done together up to now or can do moving forward, what are they hoping it's going to accomplish for current community goals? Because things have changed for them as well. How can you both be more creative in meeting your aligned goals? Have that incredible conversation, and you're going to feel much more informed about how you need to move forward. The second thing we're saying every organization should do after their calls is to have a donor survey. It's important on so many levels. A lot of us, including myself in the past, felt like research and surveys were a luxury, something we couldn't afford or didn't have time to do, and that's simply not the case. Now more than ever, we believe that being in touch with your donors, having their input, nothing should happen without it. Another important reason is that it's rare that we really get to communicate with them outside of our asking time. Surveys then become this incredible opportunity to bring donors into the loop of your important discussions and decisions. They're going to feel more engaged, and they're going to feel that they're an important part of what your next ask may be, because you're going to be asking for a reason. Always make the effort, though, to take back what you learned to the people you surveyed. Let them know that these results that you're asking for are going to be shared with them. It can even be done as, simply in your next newsletter. But participants often don't get to see their input realized, unless there's some big change or outcome that they happen to get to notice. Think of all the surveys you might have taken and then you never get, a message back, well, great, that helped us decide this or influenced our next decision in some way. So when you take the results back and you share that, it shows that you are listening. Now, in the notes that you can access on the Achieve website, the slide deck that you'll get there is full of all these notes, so you'll have those, but I just wanted to say on there we do have sample questions that you could put into a survey. but don't hesitate to reach out to learn more about that process. So after you've done your calls, you've created a survey, now it's time for your ask. Your fall fundraising campaign and message, whether it's conducted by phone, direct mail, email, all on virtual platforms, whether it's the, events are going virtual or any combination of these, the great thing is that they are now totally directed by donor feedback. What does this do for you? It gives you the greatest confidence you've ever had going into a campaign. It's informed by your donors and for them. So we're going to move into the round of questionings and open that up. I'm going to join you back on video again. So maybe we can see chat, or Clay, will you lead us through this, please, and let us know the questions coming in?
I sure will. So everyone feel free to ask any questions of Cheryl and Laura in the chat, and we'll get to those as they come up. I see a couple here now. So the first question is, so given that all the changes going on, what are your recommendations for virtual events?
I'm so glad you asked this, because we have, as a team, been really, again, looking across the nation and very concentrated in our area of how people are going to do their virtual events, if they're doing them, if they're deciding to go in that direction. The great news is that everything we've taught you today completely applies to your virtual event. And when we talk about the opportunities, although many of us have been forced in this direction and might be uncomfortable with it, there are certainly opportunities now that we've been longing for a long time. And that is to get our events, again, much more mission-based, to control that focus, spend less money on the entertainment factor, and put those budget dollars into really providing a very engaging event, even online. Now, we do recommend locally here, there are lots of great organizations who are providing technological services, but we recommend you work, if you're in I think they can work with you anywhere because they're a virtual company. Productive Power, located here. They, and we recommend them because we know them, we trust them, we've worked with them. Go back to focusing on your cause and playing up everything we mentioned related to your message and design. You are probably seeing that people are putting together some great virtual event kits to make it feel complete. Dream Team also does this. So we would be happy to talk with you if you have that need. Cheryl, did I miss anything?
No, that was good. That was perfect. You're good.
Great. What's next?
Great. So I have a question. Here from, I'm going to butcher this name. I apologize. I believe it's Amanat, who asks, are there any keywords to consider using when designing a message? So you talked about keywords that they shouldn't use, but are there certain things they should be using?
Oh,
yeah, whatever's human. Who are you? You know these answers. Are you, if you're related to, like a food bank or something, you need to think about what's important for that, specific industry. If you're working with children, if you're working with seniors, whatever it is, we can't say like, oh, the hot new buzzword is compassion. It's only going to be applicable and work well if it's who you are. So it's really hard to say. I think it's a great question because we spent so much time saying, don't use this, don't use this. And it's not necessarily don't use it, don't overuse it, and don't use it if it is not who you are.
And to answer that a little further, thank you, Cheryl. I would say that there isn't a one size fits all with this. That's the point of what we talk about, is that when you shift into this kind of messaging, there's some work you do to discover your highest purpose. And those are your words. These are the things that attract people to you. It's your uniqueness. It's what you're doing to solve a problem. They become your own buzzwords, right? And one of the things we do in the process when you work with Dream Team is we identify those individually for each organization we work with. So it's part of our unique process that then provides you with the words that work for you. So unfortunately, it's not a one size fits all.
Right, right.
Okay, great. So next question would be, so how does this work if we're not doing direct mail this year? So what are your suggestions there if they're not able to do that?
Wonderful, because everybody's assessing how they're going to spend their budget on fundraising, what is going to really reach people. And we want to say that even though we showed you some direct mail campaigns, those were also email campaigns. We have one client we work with that took a real look at her audiences and wanted to segment them. We're all familiar with that. It's one of the smartest things to do, you know, especially if you have certain age demographics or people that, you know, respond to certain information and what they're most likely, you know, to engage with, if it's mail or email or social media or, you know, now virtual events. But again, all of these tips and tools apply to that. And another great thing I want to say is that if you begin with that research, if you begin with those surveys, if you understand your audience, then you can make the decision on, we don't need direct mail. One of my clients that we were working with last year totally did away with direct mail. It was a huge, scary step because they'd always done it. Well, we got super focused in the email direction. We had great design. We had the research behind it. Boom, more money than ever because we created a spot on position that is going to continue in that end of year campaign every year. So if you just do this virtually, apply all the same tools, you will get a better response.
Thank you, Laura. That's great advice. So next question we have here is, so you gave us a couple of examples or quite a few examples of fundraising packages. So how much does it cost to get an end of year fundraising package like those examples? What kind of budget do they need to be thinking of?
So good question. So we obviously are very client focused in developing a cost depending on what it is that you need. If we have to give a rough estimate, I would say, you know, things that you've seen here, including research and messaging and design and all that, would probably be anywhere from, you know, $2,500 to $5,000, depending on the number of pieces, what is going out, is it print and email, all kinds of things. It's really hard, as you all know, when somebody says, well, what does something cost? Well, we need to have a conversation first. But we do work with people with all different types of budgets, and it can be as small or as large as it needs to be.
Okay, super. So here's another one kind of in that line, which is, we know our brand needs work, but don't have time or money to overhaul it right now. What should we do?
We hear that every day, and we totally.
You've probably never heard that before.
You know, that's why we love doing what we're doing today, is giving great organizations tips and tools to start moving forward in the most simple way possible, doing the best you can do. If you put into action much of what our team was talking about today, you will have an improved message. Just simplifying it and assessing everything you're doing and taking out the jargon and the meaningless language, will be an instant improvement for your entire brand. So make sure to go back and do that. One of the things our team also offers that isn't a lengthy process, we can do that assessment for you if you just want us to take a look. It's one of our smaller program packages. It's very affordable. We can assess with you and show you, we actually give you a relevance scale. You know, how relevant is my message to my audience out there? But we do want to say, you know, brands can't be rushed. So don't feel under pressure. If you want to start making changes, there are steps you can take on your own. And then if and when you're ready to explore working with somebody like our team to heighten that brand, then that's, you know, a great step to take. Just put the things we offered today into motion.
Don't get discouraged if you don't love your brand or feel like your brand isn't where it needs to be. This is not the time to do nothing. Something is better than nothing. So to reiterate what Laura said, use what we gave you today. Don't let a lack of a love of your brand hold you back. It's important. You can address that later, but these tips will work on any type of piece that you're putting out. And then if maybe down the road the brand needs strengthening or redoing or whatever, that's something that you can then do.
Great. So this is
great advice.
This is the point where we get to say thank you again to Achieve, to Extraordinary Charities, to the Great Charity Challenge. You have our information on the screen. And for all of you attending today, if you email us, we are offering a free consultation so we can talk with you about what your needs are, give you some advice. And we are offering some really special offers and deep discounts for participants today, only for you all. So if you email any of us right there, as you see, let's see, yep, Laura, Cheryl. Surale is S-U-R-A-L-E at thedreamteam.com. And we will set you up, have a great consultation, and see if there's something that we can do for you at a better rate than normal. So I can't thank you enough for your time today. Thank you, Clay. Thank you, Cheryl.
Thanks, everybody. We appreciate you joining us.